Seth, so lovely to see you, mate. As always, it's an absolute pleasure. Your book, This is Strategy, is insane. I absolutely loved it. What I'd love to start with, I believe, sort of the original gangster strategist, probably the original gangster challenger brand. Someone I've also read lots about is Napoleon. And
Are we
one of
talking about the dessert or the general?
the General Napoleon.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Slightly different things.
Given that it's a food podcast, it could just as easily have been the dessert.
What's the Napoleon dessert? Is that like a American
It's
brand?
no, it's a French dessert. It's many layers of stuff with some cream filling inside. It's like a donut.
Oh, yes. Okay, no.
They
So I'm
sell a
talking
lot. They sell a lot of them in the United States. I have no idea if they're popular in Europe.
right. No, I'm talking about the general, and then we can apply it to food. But I've sort of read a lot about Napoleon, and one of his things is speed and flexibility. And so when he'd go into war, he'd sort of did the cops arms. He could split his troops into different sort of segments, and he could move relentlessly fast, but also be super adaptable. Now, in the book, you sort of say, hastiness undermines strategy. And I'd love to sort of explore with you the tension between being steadfast in what you're trying to do and not changing versus moving relentlessly fast and sort of pivoting as you bounce. And we can use any food brand example to kind of explore that.
Okay. So, I've done a fair number of conversations about my book, and this is the first time someone has brought up a general and military strategy. And that's fine with me. I am not an expert on military strategy, but what I will tell you is this. Napoleon had a tactic that in its era was a game changer. And the tactic was speed, but it wasn't a strategy. The strategy was take over Europe, right? That he had a philosophy of where he was trying to go and what it would feel like to go there. And then once you decide that your strategy is to use warfare and other things to dominate and gain more power, now you need tactics. And one of those tactics was speed. So let's not get confused about them.
Okay. So speed.
Okay. So let's go to concrete examples because this confuses a lot of people. What is Starbucks' strategy? Their strategy is to offer a luxury brand experience to a certain group of people who are in a pre-caffeinated state, so that in a way that elevates their sense of status, gets them what they want. Now, there are lots of tactics: opening stores in airports, coming up with a brand of ice cream, coming up doing this and doing the other thing, working with United Airlines. These are all tactics to reinforce their arc of standing for luxury in a small payment for people who are looking for a caffeine fix. And when they try to go outside of that, like get known for their egg sandwiches, they fail every time because those tactics don't support their strategy, and they don't have another strategy to go with. We're going to feed people who are hungry. Their only strategy is we're going to caffeinate people who want to be caffeinated.
So I totally get that. So speed's downstream from strategy. When should strategy change? Because say like for example, Dyson started as a wheelbarrow, and then actually it's probably blasphemous if I call it a Hoover, but a vacuum cleaner. He that would be blasphemous. But he started there, and then he went to something different. So where does that fit into things? So the reason I'm asking this is because a lot of our listeners have brands, and I think we'll get really into sort of the difference between strategy and tactics, but they may start with an idea. A lot of the people I have interviewed start with an idea, and then it ends up there as something completely different. And I think what I got from your book is like kind of, pick your customers, pick your future. Like don't change what you're trying to do. But then at some point you do need to change, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So, okay. Dyson's strategy, as long as I've been aware of them, and I was one of their early US customers, is
Right.
for a certain small group of well-off customers, be engineering forward in selling people at a high price, something that is demonstrably different and even better, where the engineering leads the way. And there are plenty of other vacuum cleaner alternatives, hair dryer alternatives, etc., that don't lead the way Dyson does by showing off just how light the portable one is, just how much wind comes out of the hair dryer, etc., etc. So
Yes. Okay.
that every time he does that, he does better. But when he did things like they came out with a line of headphones, I believe,
Yeah.
and the headphones couldn't compete with Sennheiser's in terms of the quality of the audio because he pretended to be engineering forward and driven, but it didn't blow everything away. If he doesn't blow you away with his engineering, you're going to pick a cheaper alternative. So that strategy eventually is going to peter out because sooner or later your vacuums can't suck any more than they do. And now you don't stand for something. Whereas Apple has a different strategy. Their strategy is create a luxury good category based on digital experiences and give our users ever growing desire to have good taste about digital interaction. That's what they do. The fact that there's a phone or a watch is a tactic.
It's a tactic. So products are sometimes are tactics as well in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, because what I need from your strategy is the more you do it, the better it works. And you need to be able to tell the people who work with, you don't want it to be a secret. This is our strategy. The more we do it, the better it works. Now I'm going to trust you to come up with tactics.
You say I want to run through some of the quotes that I highlighted because they're delicious. So small companies ask me about a marketing problem. I respond by saying you probably need a strategy first. What's the difference between marketing and strategy?
So some people use the word marketing to mean promotion. How do I get the word out about this great podcast? How do I get the word out about my store that sells donuts in Napoleon? How do I get the word out? I just got to keep interrupting people. That's promotion. Marketing is the work we do before we do the hard work. Marketing is building something like a fax machine because you can't send a fax to yourself. So built into the fax machine is the engine of its spreading, which is the more people have fax machines, the more people have to have fax machines because other people want to send them a fax, right? So that's a strategy. When I think about brilliant marketing choices, Patagonia made the marketing choice to stand for the earth, to be the brand you buy, to prove you can afford it, and to prove you care more than everybody else. So every time they come up with a new tactic, jackets made out of recycled plastic bottles, a process where you can sell them back your used clothes, right? Every time they come up with a tactic that supports their marketing strategy, they do better. And most people I know in the food business think that being more delicious is sufficient. And it's not. You need a different kind of marketing strategy. More delicious is the cost of doing business. You have to go beyond that.
What's an example of a brand that, in your eyes, that has done that, has gone above and beyond?
Well, so if you name a food business that has rabid followers, I think I can tell you that the reason it has followers has more to do with the story they tell themselves about what they're buying, as opposed to whether in a double-blind taste test they could tell the difference.
Yes. It's the state, like the thing that sort of burnt in my synapses since doing this, like our podcast conversations and reading the book, is the sort of the three levers: the status, affiliation, and freedom of fear. Like I see that, and I now sort of observe brands, and I'm like, so there's a brand over here called Bold Bean Co. Amazing brand. She's basically, Amelia, she's a good friend of mine. She's taken the commodity of beans, like not baked beans, but like beans you get in a supermarket.
Dried beans, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's typically in like a tinned, crappy little jar. She's put it in a glass jar. She's got all these big, like, I don't know if you guys know Nigella Lawson. She's a massive food person over here. that's elevated the status. She's done all these cool recipes. She's created this whole community around it. And then that's the sort of the affiliation. And I think you're so right. It's like the delicious is the benchmark. And then everything above that is status, affiliation, freedom of fear. And I love that. But in the book, you do sort of talk about some other levers. I think those are sort of the base. So those are like, you see that
Right.
everywhere. And what are some of the other ones that say you've got those covered? Like, what are some of the other ones we could talk about? So I think you talked about luxury, convenience, and are there any food brands that sort of play into those other levers, I suppose?
Okay, so let's go back to the 4 principles we started with, right?
Yeah.
Which are systems and games, empathy, and the 4th one. So, but I'm focusing on games right now. A game is any situation where there's scarcity and human beings involved. So if I need shelf space for my cola, Richard Branson has a problem because Richard Branson says, in order for me to get Virgin on the shelf, I got to get Coke to give up some shelf space. It's a game, right? Okay. How do I make a move here so that the merchant who's between me and the customer will take some Coke off the shelf and put some Virgin in its place? That's a game.
Okay.
It is a game to figure out, leaving the distribution aside, how to get people to decide once a week to serve their family spaghetti instead of serving their family pork chops, because they're not going to serve them both. So let's do the spaghetti example because it's right on the top of my head. So if you grew up in the Northeast United States, you may be familiar with a brand of pasta called Prince. And what Prince needed to do was make it so that people didn't feel like they were poor if they served their family pasta for dinner. Because in the 1970s in Boston, if you were a working class family, you didn't want to serve the breadwinner a bowl of spaghetti for dinner. What are we, poor? Where's the meat? So what they did was they came up with a great hook, which is lots of people in their target market were Catholic. And in those days, Catholics didn't eat meat on Fridays. And that was just a given. Mm-hmm. It's Friday, we're having fish because the Pope said so. So what Prince did was they came up with a marketing strategy. And their marketing strategy is in their slogan, Wednesday is Prince Spaghetti Day. That's it. People like us do things like this. We're not having pasta on Wednesday because we're poor. We're having pasta on Wednesday because it's Wednesday. That's what we do. And so what they did, that strategy move, increased the amount of pasta consumed by a factor of 30. Because you went from almost nobody having spaghetti for dinner to a whole bunch of people having it for dinner once a week. That's a game. They made a move. And once they make the move, they can continue the move. Because now you go to a friend's house, it's Wednesday, they're going to serve you pasta, now you go home. And the more you do it, the better it
So
works.
strategy strengthens the more you do it, essentially.
Correct.
Okay, with you. Are there any other examples of that where it, like the compounding of the strategy makes it stronger?
Well, so let's just understand that tactics can be exhausted pretty easily. Spamming people, hustling people, the more you do it, the worse it works, right?
Yeah.
Lowering your prices, the more you do it, the better it works until it stops working because now you're losing money and then you go out of business.
Yes.
So in Walmart's case, low prices is a useful strategy because they can scale, build more efficient warehouses, get better deals. The more they do it, the more they leave the competition behind. It's a strategy for them. For everybody else, it's a dead-end tactic. But let's go back to this idea of food. In the wine business, in restaurants, for a very long time, the more you raised your price, the better you did. Because if wine is a luxury good, purchased by people who can't tell the difference, someone's got to have the most expensive wine on the menu, and it might as well be you. And if you keep defending your position as the highest status, most expensive wine, like Rothschild or whatever, you can live with that for a very long time. Right? If we think about Rolex, which makes billions and billions and billions of dollars, selling something that does not keep time as well as the thing on my wrist or yours, what are they selling? Well, they have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on partnerships and promotion to keep their status as the one who wins that category. And if you're going to make a run at them, you better be prepared to outspend them, because coming in second isn't going to do you any good. You don't want to have to apologize to your girlfriend for not buying the ring at Tiffany's, right? Tiffany's is where you buy the ring, because then you don't have to apologize for it. If you got a better deal or a better diamond, it doesn't matter. You have to explain it. You don't want to explain it. Just go with the one who has the strategy that's working.
So and then in terms of those other levers, in terms of, so you got the status, the affiliation, freedom of fear. What would you say that two of those are, or some of those are?
Well, there are things we do to support those, but
Right.
those are pretty much all there are. Right? So, convenience. Convenience, if you can win, is terrific because it gives me time to spend on things I'm afraid of. It gives me time to invest in the other things that I care about. So, but convenient brands aren't beloved brands. They're just brands that might do a lot of sales. But if you want to build
something like Costco, would Costco be convenience because you're getting it in loads of bulk, so you're not having to,
or even just getting an end cap for your brand of bottled water at the supermarket. People grabbed it because they could see it, not because it's one they would go out of their way to get.
With you,
right? So that if you can figure out how to add convenience to what you're doing, it's a plus. But convenience alone doesn't build you something for the ages.
You said, another quote, "You can't step in the same river twice because your footprint the first time turned the river into a different river and it changed you as well."
Right.
Amazing. I kind of get it, but I'd love to sort of explore that, go a little bit, pardon the pun, but deeper into that.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about systems now.
Yeah.
Systems are invisible. They hide. We build culture to hide them. Systems don't want us to examine them. So how much should a wedding in London cost? Probably it's averaging now 120,000 pounds. Why does it cost so much? Because it's exactly as much as your best friend spent, plus a little more. The wedding industrial complex is a system. You don't want to have to apologize for the fact that you're serving pizza at your wedding, so you don't. You have a normal wedding, which wasn't normal 100 years ago, but it's hiding. There's a system. There's a food distribution system. We tend to go to the supermarket to buy food. Well, the supermarket's pretty new. In small villages in France or Italy, you still don't go to the supermarket to get food. And where I live, people go to the gas station to get food because the system of food distribution is changing. So if you see the system, here's a food example. You say, well, how can I break that open? There's no way I'm going to get my dog food into the supermarket when Purina has so much money to spend to keep me out. Oh, but the internet is going to change things. So I'll sell dog food by subscription, by the mail, and I won't sell it in the store. Because you know you're going to need food for your dog forever. So you sign up for food coming to your house by mail. I know how I don't have to cut in the supermarket. I can offer a different kind of convenience. I can offer a different kind of status. And so now we have these multi-million-dollar dog food brands that deliver direct because they played a different system.
I swear it's hard. One of the things I picked up from the book is it's hard to know you're in a system. It's like that. I don't know if you've listened to that David Foster Wallace speech where it's like the two fish swimming along.
What's water?
He goes, how's the water today, boys, or boys and girls? And the fish are like, what's water? And it's like, I feel like a lot of people don't know we're in a system. One of the things I think you're amazing at, Seth, is like observing kind of from like an ancillary thing. Like what's the art of that? And like, how do you kind of observe? Say you walk down the street in New York to get a bagel, for example, or whatever, fill in the blank. Like, how do you observe and then use that to sort of see things and understand things?
If you see something that doesn't make sense, that's new, you got to have an explanation for it. And the answer is probably that's what the system was. So if I go to a vineyard in Italy, I can buy a liter of the best olive oil I've ever had in my entire life for 10 euros. When I was growing up, there was no olive oil in the supermarket. And now I can go to a decent supermarket in New York and spend 60 euro on a bottle of olive oil. Something changed. The distribution method changed. if I'm going to start an olive oil company, I got to realize there's a system at work here, a system that begins with either differentiated or undifferentiated olives. They cost different amounts. A system that's different kinds of processing, different kinds of packaging, different kinds of distribution. And lots of people have come before me, and lots of people make choices about what they're going to buy based on elements of what I just described.
Sure. Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. So there's a guy I know, he's an author, and he and his wife started an olive oil vineyard or whatever you call it, Fattoria, in California. And Fat Gold olive oil is sitting in my kitchen. How did I end up with that? Right? Well, what Robin did was he said, look, I got 100,000 people read my newsletter. I'm going to start telling stories, not about my stories, but about the olive oil, and give people a chance to subscribe. That's a strategy with tactics built in. Because now I've got olive oil with a story. I got olive oil that when I serve it, I can tell other people about it. It gets me a certain kind of status, because how many other people have olive oil that one of their favorite authors made, right? So when we're going to the public who has enough food, with food, we have to give them a reason to buy it other than this is food, because they already have food. And it has to be more than I think it's more delicious, because they don't know if it's more delicious. They haven't tasted it yet. So you have these cycles that you have to see as you seek to gain traction, bringing your brand to an ever larger group of people.
It's fascinating. I think one of the ways to do that you guys call it CPG, we call it FMCG, but like is changing packaging. And that's what the olive oil I sent you, Citizens of Soil, one of the things they've done to change the system is you can buy it in, like, the things you do wine, like
you sent me one. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's like just changing the packaging. There's another brand over here called Innocent who do orange juice.
Yep.
They literally just changed. They put it in a cart. Their sales were bombing. I've interviewed the founder, and they just put it in a carton that looked like this. They just kind of just looked at the system, changed it, and then bosh, this huge eruption of sales. And I that's what I love from the book, is just observing, and they're just having these little tweaks to things.
Right. So, but let's talk about the refill of the olive oil.
Yeah.
Okay. So the refill of the olive oil ostensibly is going to be cheaper than buying the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably not enough incentive to overcome the inconvenience of finding the refill and then doing the refill, spilling it on my counter, etc. I need a better story than that if I'm going to buy a refill. And the story that a refill tells could mean lots of things. It could be you're a better person because you don't want to throw out a perfectly good bottle. It could be that the only way to get a refill is to prove you have a bottle, and our refills are going to be a varietal of olive oil you can't get any other way, right? It could be that you're getting a subscription to this refill thing, and what you get out of that is the knowledge that you're a patron. Because every time we get 300 subscribers, we're going to be able to go to a new vineyard and do a new thing. So let's think about this company called Garagiste. Garagiste, and I don't remember the statistics because it's been years since I talked to them. Garagiste is a newsletter. And what you get is an email, it used to be once a day, describing this insane bottle of wine. And it described it in beautiful prose. Wow. And if you were a member of Garagiste, all you had to do was click a button, and they would take as many bottles as you asked and put them in your vault in their warehouse. And then 4 times a year, they would ship you all the wine in your vault. So you could just collect one bottle at a time, and then you get 48 bottles all at once. And the thing about the way Garagiste worked is it was a delight to read the copy. The copy was the best wine copy you ever read. The prices were about half of what you would expect. And the fact that they didn't ship it to you all at once meant you weren't paying very much for shipping. It was more convenient. And when you served the wine to other people, you got to tell them this great story of all the things, how smart you were to obtain this wine. And once Garagiste has scale, now the system kicks back in, because now they can go to a vineyard that might be struggling. and say, we'll buy all your wine right now. Here's money. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk to people about this, I say, how many people do you think are buying wine from garagistes on a regular basis? And someone says 3,000, 5,000. If I remember, it's 150,000. So if you got 150,000 people who are one click away from buying wine because you wrote a good essay about it, you have a new system for everything in wine except for the growing of the grapes. Everything about it, you've got the power to change.
If you're a challenger brand that's absolutely killing it in D2C, but you're struggling to crack retail, then you've got to listen to this. Maybe you've got an Ocado listing, maybe you've got a Whole Foods listing, maybe you're absolutely killing it in Selfridges, maybe you're absolutely killing it in your farm shop and your indies. But my friends, making the leap, crossing El Chasm, crossing El Rubicon to grocery retail is not easy. It's the Champions League of FMCG. It's super hard. It means playing at a higher level, and that's where so many amazing brands sadly stumble. Look, retailers want stories backed by data, not dreams, and a pretty pitch deck. And let's be real, supermarkets are not just going to magically make a space for you and your little brand. They need data. Something's got to go for you to get in, for you to get on shelf. And that is why I've got to tell you about North Star. They are the team that's helping purpose-led FMCG brands go from gut instinct dreams to unstoppable pitch decks that actually unlock retailers. North Star are not like another data company that force feed you data like foie gras, that act like a NASA space mission. It's super simple to use. Their team are amazing and they actually get the challenger mindset. North Star are your shortcut to smarter decisions, stronger pitches, and investor confidence, all built specifically for challenger brands like yours. You don't need a massive sales team, you need North Star. Link in the show notes, click that link and you'll be able to book a free demo with North Star. Highly recommend that, and thank me later. It's the story that comes with it is fascinating. I think that olive oil company, well, on the podcast Citizens of Soil, they said they 10x their D2C revenue overnight, but it was subscribed to olive oil. They just literally changed it to join the olive oil club. Suddenly you have a story, suddenly you have affiliation, suddenly you have status because they do these sick yoga nights in London. Yeah, makes total sense. Another one, time flies like an arrow. If I break an egg and scramble it, it can't be unscrambled and put back in the shell. Talk to me about that, Seth.
Okay, so that's the fourth of the four pillars, which is today is not like tomorrow or yesterday. And if we think about how strategy unfolds, somebody at Arm & Hammer comes up with this idea, dubious science, but
Arm &
they
Hammer.
They make baking soda.
Okay.
The most boring product in the entire supermarket.
Yes.
They come up with this idea. You should put a new box of baking soda in your refrigerator every 3 months because it absorbs all the smells. So
is this baking soda and the baking soda you eat as well?
Don't eat baking soda. No, it's baking soda you cook with.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I meant you cook with, but is that not going to get all the fumes in and stuff?
Well, it absorbs all the fumes. You never use it to cook. You just leave it there, and then 3 months later, you throw it out.
With you. Sorry. With you. Yes.
Don't be sorry. It's amazing that I guarantee you that if I went to 20 of my friends' houses, 19 of them have a box of baking soda in their fridge.
Wow.
This is from scratch. It's everywhere because your status as a homekeeper, maker, goes up if you're taking care of the smells inside of your fridge. It's only $3. Just put the box in there because people like us, we have a box inside of us, inside of our fridge. So if you're the Arm & Hammer people, some brand manager comes up with this idea and you got to spend a few $1 million in advertising to do it. This is scary because no one knows about this yet, putting it in the fridge. But a year later, when it's working, okaying the ad campaign is easy because it's a new world. And if you want to compete with Arm & Hammer in 2025, you got a big problem because the kind of baking soda you're supposed to put in the fridge comes in an orange box. You can't persuade me to switch to another kind of thing unless you do a new thing to show me that it's going to even be better at absorbing the odors in my fridge, right? Maybe you come out with a box that's shaped in a different way with holes in it. I don't know. But time changed. It's not fresh anymore. It's not a new idea. So, we keep seeing when Howard Schultz started with Starbucks, he had to explain to people what an espresso was. But tomorrow he won't have to because he explained it today. So you have to keep evolving your tactics and sometimes your strategy because the world keeps changing.
Talk to me about scaffolding. I loved that as an idea, and it kind of is just a beautiful way of describing things. One thing, so like your smallest viable audience, and like is I totally get that, and like you're going for this niche, and it's like give them the story to create the evangelists. How does the scaffolding and the story have to change as you move along that adoption curve? Like, how should brands think about that? Because ultimately you have to go, there's a few people who love it now, but you have to change and go for mass market eventually. And I'd love to know how you do that without losing your brand's soul, because that sometimes happens as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think brands have a soul. I think people have a way they are in the world. And I think that we are here to serve other people. And if we can change what we do to serve other people better, then I think that's okay. Mm-hmm. So let me explain what we're talking about here. This is the product adoption life cycle. For people who are just listening, I'll describe it. It's a bell curve. And what we see is that at the beginning, the only people who buy what you sell are buying it because it's new. And over time, it spreads through the curve to people who buy it because it's popular. And then finally, people who buy it because everyone else has it. So if I think about, remember that AI pin that UMaine came out with 2 years ago? Mm-hmm. They sold 100,000 the first day. I bought one because I buy things that are new. I don't buy them because they work. I don't buy them because they're proven. I buy them because they're new. When it comes to tech, when it comes to sneakers, I'm never buying anything new. I have 6 pairs of the same thing in my closet. So different people want different things. And so if we go and think about this curve, when you come out with a new thing, you say, hey, it's new. We have whole wheat hot cross buns, gluten-free or whatever it is. I don't know. The only people who buy it the first day are people who want it because it's new. And a lot of food entrepreneurs get in trouble because they think that if they just succeed when it's new, it's automatic that it's going to keep spreading because it's delicious. But when we look at the curve, here's an example of the curve with trucks. The Scout is an electric truck that went on sale in the US 3 months ago. They sold 50,000 of them the first day with a $500 deposit. People who put down the $500 deposit wanted the new truck. Then there's the worst truck ever made, the Cybertruck. We'll talk about that in a second. Then there's the Ford F-150 pickup truck, the most popular vehicle of all vehicles in the United States. And then there's a 1942 Dodge. Okay. It turns out the curve doesn't really look like this. The curve has a hole in it, a chasm, a hole between things that are popular because they're new and things that are popular because they work. And so when we think about the Cybertruck, the reason the Cybertruck is a failure is because after the people who bought it because it was new, got it, they stopped telling their friends about it because it's junk. So what scaffolding is how do you support the new people long enough and deep enough that they stick it out when it's hard to tell their friends? That scaffolding is the hard work the brand does to get from the early adopters who are looking for something fresh and new to the masses who don't care as much as those people. And over time, you probably are giving up some of, quote, your soul, right? That if you want your rock group to have a top 40 hit, you can't keep making edgy, speed metal, reggae music that only a few people want to hear. That once you give the fans who are like the new thing something, then you start broadening it because you've got to have something that works for the masses. So some food brands should consistently ignore the masses. They should say, it's not for you, right? That a magnificent vineyard should not come out with a low-priced wine for the masses. That will hurt them. They should say, no, this is just for people who understand the difference between a 1969 and a 1970. We're way over here. And it's surprising but true. How many food brands have figured out that you don't need a huge audience to make something great and a brand that stands for something?
Mm.
And
How do
that's the opportunity.
Yeah, I love the idea of that chasm or chasm, however you say it, and I think, what do most people get wrong about that bit? I know you talked about like really supporting those people to share the story. Like, why doesn't the story share? Like, if someone really likes it. So I'm just trying to think, for example, like, how did Tony's Chocolonely cross that chasm? I think
Right.
that's a good example because,
It's a great example.
yeah.
It was the one I was about to tell.
Okay, great.
Okay, so none of my books have crossed the chasm. Not one. I have 21 bestsellers, and yet I've never reached more than 1% of any population. On the other hand, Harry Potter crossed the chasm. Harry Potter crossed the chasm because there weren't that many, 10,000 nerdy kids fell in love with Harry Potter. But she was lucky enough that local bookstores found that it was an easy book to sell to kids who didn't know about it. That was the scaffolding. If you could get booksellers to feel like their life would get better if they promoted it, they would promote it. And that got it across the chasm to be the book everyone was reading, not the book some nerds were reading. So what did Tony do? So my friend Sean Eskinozy has a chocolate company, one of the first bean-to-bar companies in the US, very opposed to slave labor, doing really important work. Tony sells way more chocolate than Sean does. Tony backs into the chocolate business, doesn't want to be in the chocolate business, and he now sells 25% of all the chocolate in the Netherlands. How? Because he kept making big, cheap bars. He kept making assortment bars. He didn't get precious about it. He got distribution in every store he could find. He kept it cartoonish. He basically said, this isn't a super luxury brand, and you don't have to feel stupid to buy it. He just said, this is the kind of chocolate people like us buy. It's cheap. You can give it out for Halloween, and it's delicious. Notice that nowhere in most of the Tony Chocolonely promotion does he go on and on about slave labor, because that's not why he wants you to buy the chocolate. He wants you to buy the chocolate because your status in the circle you're in the Netherlands will go up if you show up with this instead of some lousy Nestle's bar.
So
Plus, it's local.
that's the story changing then. So the early adopters, it was the slavery piece. As it gets bigger, it is ultimately thick, delicious chocolate.
Yep. And the fact that it's thick is a key piece of this, because someone who doesn't care can tell as soon as they touch it, this is not a Nestle bar. It's twice as thick. It's luxurious. It's probably delicious. That's a story, and he stuck with it, and he stuck with it. And now in the US, in just in the last 2 years, his shelf space keeps growing. You can buy a big bag of Tony Chocolonely pieces for like $5, which is great.
And so one thing, just to latch on to that Tony's example, which I kind of understood but didn't definitely understood, is the catch-22 of leverage systems. So it's systems, games, and feedback loops dancing together. Right. How could we use Tony's to explore that, like as an example, or as another example?
Okay, so the retailer in the Netherlands has a problem, which is their chocolate shelf doesn't sell as much per square foot as they would like. If you go to a merchant and say, I can increase your inventory turns and your profit per square foot, the merchant will always listen to you, right? And Tony didn't have the leverage to do that at the A&P or a big supermarket chain in the US, but in the Netherlands he did, because he could show up and say, I got all this media attention, I'm local, and I'm willing to sell at a really small margin so that you can make money. And because I'm going to add energy to your shelf, your sales per square foot are going to go up. That becomes a feedback loop, because when he gets a little bit of shelf space, if he makes them a little bit more money, they give him more shelf space, and then he makes them more money. And now the energy on the shelf is going up, and the other chocolate seems boring in comparison, and he's the normal kind. So now the sales go up again because he's the normal kind. And so he worked the loop again and again and again by making the merchant happy and by giving the customer something that they wanted.
And that's the strategy, like strengthening? Is that part of that? Is that the same part of the equation?
Yes, because the more he does it, the better it works. And so what you're seeking to do as a food entrepreneur is first you got to figure out which system are you playing in. Are you direct to consumer or are you playing with merchants? Right? So, what's the strategy of By the Way Bakery? We've talked about it before, my wife's bakery. Everything she sells is gluten-free, dairy-free, and kosher. So by doing that, she already puts herself in a new category. She doesn't have any competition. She just has to get people into her category. And so the pitch is, don't just buy one or two for the kid with celiac at the party. Buy it for everybody, because no one will be able to tell it's not delicious. That's why it's called By the Way. By the way, it's gluten-free. So now you don't have to isolate a kid. There's always room at the table for everybody, because we've got stuff for everybody here, because we've focused on the people who can't eat the other stuff. And now your status goes up as a mom or a dad, because you're the parent who brings something out that all the kids can be delighted with. And that gets you to go back to the store, and then you can get hooked on the cycle. That approach to the market is harder at retail, because Whole Foods says, we don't care about one family. We have this piece of shelf space. We need sales per square foot to go up. You're not going to get shelf space unless you give us a story that we can use to start the cycle going again. So her wholesale division has a different challenge. How do you create that iterative feedback loop so that people who buy it come back and buy it some more, so you get more shelf space so it can be repeated? And in the US, traditionally, the way a big company does that is you buy a ton of ads. Because if you buy a ton of ads, people go to the store and ask for it, so you get more shelf space, and it pays for the ads.
I know we're almost at time. Can I ask you a couple more questions?
Yeah, I love doing this.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So just on the feedback loop. So for example, one of the common issues brands have here is that actually, because they're so small, they say availability actually being on shelf is the issue, right?
Yep.
You can do everything you want to get into the supermarket or the grocery store or Trader Joe's, whatever all the ones you got over there. But the issue is that you may not be on shelf because you're a small company of 4 people. And that
Correct.
feedback, does that mean your feedback loop's getting absolutely pillaged because you can't be on shelf? Is that
It means
almost
you
like
picked the wrong system.
Right. Okay. So that's why it could be more beneficial at that period of time to go to maybe 5 chains of independent stores in Southwest London, because you can control that feedback loop, get that rate of sale going.
You're looking for customer traction. Customer traction solves all problems. People who come back, people who tell their friends, people who would miss you if they are gone. So getting back to chocolate, the first bean-to-bar maker in the US was John Scharfenberger. Scharfenberger decided his system would be to sell bean-to-bar chocolate to pastry chefs. You know where the pastry chefs are. They're not doing anything during the day. You can go make sales calls. And it failed. It failed because pastry chefs do not increase their status by trying a new kind of chocolate. Pastry is complicated, and you put a new kind of chocolate in there and the whole thing might fall apart. Not interested. So he took a bunch to the Berkeley Farmers Market. And the Berkeley Farmers Market is one day, direct to consumer, and he gave out samples. And by the end of the day, he had sold a month's of his inventory in one day. Wow. Because what he discovered is if he could look someone in the eye and give them a sample and they could afford to pay $20 for a block of chocolate, they would. New system invented on the spot with a feedback loop. The more he went to farmers markets, the better it did. And once he's got a following in farmers markets, he could go to a store in San Francisco just down the street and say, I'm selling a lot of this stuff. And now he could say to his customers, you can go to this one store. Feedback loop, customer traction, feedback loop, customer traction. If you just get lucky at the beginning, that's going to hurt you because you're going to think you earned it. You didn't earn it. You got lucky. And if you're not getting customer traction, you got trouble.
Is there a feedback loop in terms of the evangelist sharing the idea, sharing the story? Sorry. Is that like as
exactly.
Okay. So like I went to this olive oil club in like this bougie rooftop in London. That's a positive feedback loop because that increases my status. Okay. Make total sense.
Right. Or when Apple launched the Newton, They sold 100,000 the first month.
What was the Newton? That
exactly.
Was okay.
It was before the iPhone. The iPhone sold almost as many units as the Newton did 10 years before. The Newton comes out, 100,000 people buy it. That's a huge hit. And it fails. And the reason it fails is it didn't work right. And so people like me who bought one told all my friends, it's junk, don't buy it. Feedback loop, wrong direction.
What was it, a phone, or was it like a...
It was an iPad, black and white, that you could write on, and it could read your handwriting.
Right. I want to talk about like Britain's greatest export, which is rock and roll, and I want to talk about some examples of that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the issues that I write a newsletter every week, and like I've sometimes over the years had this creative blocks that come, or just this kind of lack of creativity. You're like the Mick Jagger of marketing. You can just keep banging out tune after tune. Have you seen the meme of like the British rock bands that just will just keep creating? What is the art to like just creating like consistently and for a long period of time? Because I've had periods of time where I just feel like my creativity is kind of zapped or zonked out, if that makes sense.
Miles Davis made 50 records, and the Rolling Stones, I think, have made 50 as well. Half of the Rolling Stones records are below average, right? I am going to have a blog post tomorrow on my blog. It won't be because it's my best blog post. It'll be because it's tomorrow. And once I stop debating whether I'm going to have a blog post tomorrow, now the only question is, how can I make it better? Mm-hmm. And the same thing's true for Mick and Keith. They don't have a debate. Maybe now they do, but they don't have a debate as to whether they're going to make a record or record an album. They're gonna. So what's the best thing you got? And that's what it is to be a professional. You're not waiting for divine inspiration. You're here to serve other people. What's the best we got?
That's like Pressfield's turning pro. Did you ever have any or when the creative juice is zapped out, what do you do to sort of invoke not the divine right, but some people say to me, change your inputs, change your outputs. Like, is there anything you do specifically around that if you're feeling a bit like, ugh?
Well, there's two parts to it. The easy answer is do lousy work. Don't ship it, but look at it and say, is that really the best I can do? Because improving it is easier than just starting. But the second thing is you may have a systems problem. It may be that you're trying to push something uphill when you should be doing a different thing that'll roll downhill. And it may be that, like, if you want to be a rock star today, my best advice is don't be a rock star today.
Yeah.
Because we burn down the system. Radio stations don't matter. Billboard doesn't matter. All that stuff. The things that would make Van Morrison a rock star today do not exist. So go find a different way to accomplish what you
DJs,
want.
if you go to Ibiza, like, DJs are the new rock stars. Like, I've interviewed a few DJs, and it's because the whole system's changed. Beatport, SoundCloud, sharing on Instagram. One of my favorite quotes of all time, David Bowie: "The only art I'll ever study is the art I can steal from." And I love that because I think what he's saying with that is you can get these ideas and then you make them your own. And I think that's another part of the creative process of creative act is you get inspiration and then you sort of amalgamate and jumble and mold them into your own thing. Well, I know you've talked about Zig Ziggler a lot. I think he was your friend Danny Mayer. Like, what are some of the big ideas that you've kind of used as inspiration and then melded into your own thing?
Well, why don't we reverse David's quote and say, the only art I'm going to be able to steal from is art I study.
Okay, hang on a sec. Yeah, hang on a sec. So hang on that. Yeah, okay. Yes, yeah, with you.
So when you send me the world's best peanut butter, or I walk into the Metropolitan Museum of Art, or I hear a jazz musician I've never heard before, I'm inspired. It doesn't matter what it is. I can steal something from all of those people because I chose to look for something to steal. If something is working, you're watching a strategy that succeeded. Figure out why it worked. Now you can steal from that. And, I give my heroes and mentors credit all the time. The list is really long because I've learned so much from Patti Smith. I've learned so much from Danny Meyer and 100 people in between, because I'm looking for things, systems that are working that I can explain and maybe I can borrow.
What's did you say Patty or Paddy? Paddy's a
Patti Smith, the woman who sang Gloria and who wrote Just Kids. She used to
wait,
be with Robert Mapplethorpe.
what did she teach you?
Well, her book, Just Kids, will change your life. The audiobook is magnificent. And I learned about soul and poetry and the liminal state between here and there. I learned about heartbreak and magic and showing up when you have no right to show up. She has lived an unapologetic life of an artist for a very long time.
What did you find hard about originally about showing up without having the right to show up before?
Because I'm a fraud. I have no proof that my next idea is legit. It's new.
Couple more things. I've been starting to ask this question to a lot of guests, and it's like formidable foibles, I call them, and it's stuff when you were growing up. I think people who do great things or interesting things, often at the age of like 16, zig when everyone else zags, or zag when everyone else zigs. And I'd love to know, I asked this to this publican over here called Ocean Rogers. He's got the best pub in London. I was like, what were you doing differently when you were 16, mate? Like, how are you doing things differently? And he was like, he grew up in Ireland, massive rugby culture over there. And he was like, you know what? I'm just going to sing. And he went against the grain and he was kind of ostracized, a bit not ostracized, but just was slightly different. Because like that gave me the courage as I got older to then just look at the world slightly differently. What were you like at 16 to 18? Like what sort of stuff were you doing? How did you zig when everyone zagged?
Dan, this is a bit of a trap. And I just want to warn everyone about this trap. I know a lot of creative people. I know a lot of people who have changed the culture. And the only thing they have in common is they've changed the culture. Some of them were bullied. Some of them were bullies. Some of them were unpopular. Some of them were popular. Some of them decided to sing when they played rugby. Some of them just played rugby. When you hear stories that are interesting to me about my childhood, it's a trap because they didn't happen to you. So it's easy to say to yourself, well, that's never going to work because I didn't have that experience. And I work very hard at not looking back on something that isn't productive. Everybody has an origin story, and it's a story we repeat to ourselves. So Spider-Man's origin story was he bit by a radioactive spider when he was in high school math class. Mm-hmm. If your origin story is, there it goes again, people are always ignoring me, there's your origin story, there it goes again, I always blow my chance. Well, don't be surprised if you do it again. Go build an origin story that's just as true as the other one, where when you get in a jam, you tell yourself the story of that time you were 12 that you were in a jam and you figured it out. That's the secret. Find a productive origin story. Don't worry about other people's origin story.
Find a productive origin story. What did Zig Ziggler teach you? You could boil it down into a couple of sentences.
You can get everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. Don't be a wandering generality, be a meaningful specific. They're called stoplights, but they should be called go lights because if they're not there, the traffic stops.
Wow.
I got a herd of them. I'm going to have to sign off soon. But
Sorry. I could go.
Zig was quite a character.
Seth, I appreciate you giving us more time. It's an utter joy as always. And yeah, enjoy that olive oil. It's delicious.
Well, thank you for leading the way you do. I always learn something when I talk to you. We'll see.
I really appreciate it. Take care, Seth. Thank you so much.